Jai Janendra. When we were studying the doctrine of karma, I said that there are two subtle bodies, Karman body and Tejas body. Question is, how subtle are these bodies? In this respect, I like to quote an incident. There is an incident of Raja Pradesi, King Pradesi. He did not believe in soul. So he tried various methods to disprove the soul. In one case, he caught hold of a person who was going to die and sealed him in a copper vessel, a ghada, and said that now let me see how the soul goes out. After some time, when the vessel was opened, obviously the person was dead. Well, that's not surprise, that the person would be dead in a sealed container. But what is to be marked is that the soul is associated with these two subtle bodies, and therefore these bodies also went through the copper vessel wall. It indicates that the two bodies, Karman body and Tejas body, are so subtle that they pass through the copper wall. In fact, these bodies are so subtle that they can pass through any obstruction, maybe a planetary body, like a planet or even a sun. It can pass through that. So the soul, when migrates, from one place to another, it travels straight. It doesn't have any obstruction in its path. So we will now see in this lecture how to interpret this thing, in scientific perspective. Before we discuss about the Vargana, we talk about the matter itself, the Pudgal or Pudgalastika. In Jain philosophy, the properties of a Pudgal are defined based on the sense perception. And according to this, Pudgal has color, taste, odor, touch and shape. The first one is color, which is very important. Color in Jainism is an objective property, and there are five primary colors: black, blue, red, yellow and white. An object has all the colors, all the five colors. Normally only one is manifested, that you see only one color at a time, but all five are present in the object. As far as science is concerned, in science, the color is a combination of three things. One, the light source. Second, the object. Third, the observer. Light source, could be of various kinds. For example, sunlight, or a colored light, or a monochromatic light, and so on. Objects, there are different objects and they have different colors. The observer also matters, in this perception. The observer, can have normal eyes, or he could be color blind and so on. So these two different persons will see different colors of the object. So there are variables as far as color is concerned. There are two classes of colors in science. One, what we call as a spectral colors, and there are 7. We learn in school days, Vibgyor, there are 7 colors. Then there are non-spectral colors, or what we call as achromatic colors, and these are black, gray and white. The primary spectral colors are 3: red, blue and green. and all other colors are combination of these three colors. Tastes are 5: sweet, bitter, pungent, sour and astringent. Odors are 2: bad and good. And touch are 8. 4 are primary touch, and these are sheath means cold, ushn means hot, snigdh and ruksh. What are these snigdh and ruksh touch properties? So we have a reference in a text known as a Sarvartha Siddhi, and it says that the snigdha rukshatva gun nimitta udyot. It means that the atmospheric electricity is due to snigdha and ruksh qualities. And the science describes the lightning as the product of positive negative charge. So if you have the analogy, then we infer that the snigdha and ruksh qualities are positive and negative charge. So this is a very important inference that we know what these qualities are in terms of modern science. And this thing was first mentioned by a German scholar. Then the 4 secondary touches are mradu means soft, karkas means kathor, halka means light, and bhari means heavy. And these 4 touch qualities are produced by interaction of the 4 primary qualities. And this is mentioned in text and how these are produced by primary qualities. What does it mean, in scientific terms? It's difficult to make a correct statement, but we can speculate. Mradu and karkas may indicate bonding strength, when in Jain philosophy, a skandh is formed by paramanus, and the paramanus bond and form a skandh. So there is a bonding process. And mradu may mean soft touch, means soft or weak bonding. And kathor may mean a hard touch or hard or strong bonding. And halka and bhari, which is the light and guru, indicate mass property in matter. The halka is a light touch or low mass density, and bhari means heavy touch or high mass density. These are our speculations, and I think we are correct. And all 4 secondary touch qualities exist together. That means mradu, karkas, halka and bhari, these 4 secondary touches will exist together. So we find that the mass, which is not a basic property or a fundamental property of matter, is produced by these 2 touch, halka and bhari. And how they are produced, is a matter of investigation. This is produced by the electric charge and the thermal state. You will appreciate this when we discuss about Parmanu. So the mass appears to be a result of a kind of inertia which is introduced in a skandha by these 2 touch properties, halka and bhari. As far as science is concerned, it says that mass in particle is produced by their interaction with the Higgs boson. You might have, or you might be familiar with this term, Higgs boson. So it's some kind of field, which exists in cosmos, and the particles interact with this field and develop a property called mass. So mass is also not a fundamental property in science. When positive Parmanus are in majority and they bond in cold condition, hard touch is produced. This is mentioned in text. And when a majority of negative Parmanus bond in hot condition, soft touch is produced in the aggregate. Then there are three types of matter which are described in scriptures. One, matter having one color, one smell, one taste, two touches, and is massless. And this kind of matter is Parmanu. The Parmanu, we will talk about it in a while now, is matter which has two touch. Then the next is matter having 5 colors, 2 smells, 5 tastes, and 4 touches. And this kind of matter is subtle and massless. It has 4 touches. This is important point. And the third one is the matter having 5 colors, 2 smells, 5 tastes, and 8 touches. It is gross, like radiations or solid, liquids, gas, the forms with we are familiar. This is matter having 8 touch. And this subtle matter can transform into gross and the vice versa. This kind of interchange is possible and takes place with time. Now we will talk a little bit about Parmanu first. So Parmanu, in Jain philosophy, is the ultimate constituent of physical universe. It is indivisible, indestructible, impenetrable, incombustible, and imperceptible to sense organs. So we can't perceive or see a Parmanu. We can't perceive a Parmanu. It's omniscient, or a person with high avadhi gyan can perceive a Parmanu. It's so small. Parmanu has one of the 5 primary colors. It has only one color. One of the 2 smells, one of the 5 tastes, and 2 of the 4 primary touches. There is either hot or cold. The Parmanu can be either hot or cold. And 2, it can either snigdh or it can be rux. That is, either it can have a positive charge or it can have a negative charge. There is no neutral charge as far as Parmanu is concerned. The intensity of these qualities does not remain constant in a Parmanu. They change with time with a certain rule. Then as far as the movement of Parmanu is concerned, it is capable of being dynamically active, kriyavan. And when mobile, it may move or it may have vibratory as well as migratory motions. The activity of a Parmanu is not continuous, but rather in the form of quanta. When dynamic, it can assume a very high velocity, and it can travel from one end of the lok or one end of the universe to the other end in one samaya. Samaya is a very, very small unit of time, and it is defined by movement of a Parmanu. A Parmanu moving from one pradesh to adjoining pradesh with slow velocity. That time elapsed is one samaya. It's a very, very small time. Parmanu generally cannot be stopped by any object, apratighati. This is what it is said. And at the same time, it does not cause hindrance to any other object. So the Parmanu will pass through any object, and that is why it is able to travel from one end of the universe to the other end in such a short time. Infinite number of Parmanus can occupy one space point. It is bosonic. It's a boson in terms of science. In science, the boson particles, when You can have many large number or even the infinite number of boson particles at one point. Though similar is the case with Parmanu. A Parmanu with higher negative charge moves at a lower velocity than a Parmanu with lower negative charge. This is the property of Parmanu. And a Parmanu having positive charge favors rest position. A single Parmanu does not change its color, taste or smell. But Parmanus of all color, all tastes, all smells and all touches they exist in cosmos. Change in touch between hot and cold and between positive and negative charge can take place. So the Parmanu can change its property. From hot state it can go to cold and vice versa, and similarly with the charge. So in this respect there are two touch properties, basically one thermal and one electric. So this is the basic property of a Parmanu, that it has a thermal property which could be either hot and cold, and one electric property, it can have positive or negative charge. So the inferences from this discussion is that Parmanu is electric charge. This is a very big inference, and very fundamental statement that Parmanu is electric charge, or other way around, an electric charge makes a Parmanu. Electric charge in science is not found separately from mass, and a particle would have a mass as well as charge, So charge is not found in a separate state, but Jain philosophy says that look here, the electric charge or Parmanu is the fundamental unit of matter. Electric charge produces electric field, this is scientific knowledge, this happens. But Parmanu is so small that its field is not likely to extend beyond its own space point. It's a very small charge, and its field will not extend beyond its own space. But the field of a skandha, which is made of many Parmanus in a group, could be finite or infinite. In such a case, the field will extend beyond its own space, and therefore a skandha would interact with other skandhas or other objects. A moving skandha also produces magnetic field. A skandha now has a bigger value of charge, and it can produce an electromagnetic field when it is moving. So dynamic skandhas produce electromagnetic fields. This is very important. So we talk of electromagnetic fields in science. So such fields, according to Jainism, can be produced, by skandhas, moving skandhas, and the field of a subtle kind. This field will be of subtle kind. It's different from the electromagnetic fields with which we are familiar in science. Variations in skandha structure shall produce electromagnetic waves. So electromagnetic waves can also be produced according to Jain philosophy, and therefore is an important inference that Parmanu and not photon is the quantum of energy. Science regards that photon is the quantum of energy. This is the smallest amount of energy that can exist in nature. But according to Jain philosophy, a Parmanu is the quantum of energy. And what is the relation between Parmanu and photon? We will just see in a little while. Now here I have given the bonding rules, how the Parmanus combine. Here the basic thing is that similar charge Parmanus can also combine, and dissimilar charge Parmanus can combine. And in what conditions Parmanus would combine? So you consider two Paramanus having a charge Q, both of them Q, and Q, let us say, is the minimum value of charge. As I said earlier, charge can vary, it can increase from minimum to maximum. So consider the two Paramanus having minimum charge Q. In this case, the Paramanus would not combine, whether the charge is similar or dissimilar. If the value of charge in the two Paramanus is, let us say, different by 1 unit, one has Q charge, another has 2Q charge, then also the Paramanus will not combine. Paramanus would combine only when the difference in charge is greater than 2Q. So this is how, and if the higher difference, of course, they would combine. Now we come to the Vargana class of matter, which we are particularly interested. Vargana is an important concept to understand matter, particularly at subtle level. Vargana is an aggregate made up of similar Paramanus. So when the Paramanus aggregate, then it forms a Vargana. So Vargana is a group of Paramanus that way, and the group then behaves as a unit, as a Vargana. How many types of Varganas are there? Bhagavati Sutra text, which is a Satambar text, describes 8 types of Vargana, and these Varganas are described from the point of view that they would associate with the soul. So there could be other Varganas which do not associate with soul, but they are not considered here. So there are 8 types of Varganas that associate with soul. One is called gross body or Odaric Vargana, and these Varganas are suitable for making bodies of living beings, whether mobile or immobile. Then there are Vakric, or what is known as a protein body Vargana. These Varganas constitute the protein body possessed by celestial beings and infernal beings. They are the heavenly beings and hellish beings. They have a protein body which is different from the body we have. Then the third one is a migratory body, Aharak body. I did mention about it earlier. The Aharak body is the one where the yogis use it, to travel from one place to another in order to get answers to some of their difficult questions, So that is a Aharak or migratory body, which is made of Aharak Vargana. Then there is electric or energy body or Tejas body, which is made of Tejas Vargana. And then another is a Karman body, which is made from Karman Vargana, we know. Then the next one is a respiratory or Swachoswas Vargana. So these Varganas are used for respiration process by organisms. Then there is a speech or Bhasha Vargana. These Varganas are supposed to produce and transmit speech in organisms and in inanimate objects. And last one is mind or Manovargana. These Varganas are used for making mind in those organisms who have mind. All these Varganas are subtle and found all over lok or all over the universe. Change from one type of Vargana to another type is possible, and soul organizes and uses these Varganas to perform meaningful functions, as we have described above. There is another classification of Varganas. Gomat Sar Jeev Kand, a Digambar text, describes 23 types of Varganas. These Varganas are described on the basis of number of Paramanus present in the cluster or in the group. So, in the order of increasing number of Paramanus in the cluster, we have the following 23 types of Varganas. The first one is Anu Vargana. It consists of a single Paramanu. Then countable Anu Vargana or Sankhyata Anu Vargana. This comprises of a countable number of Paramanus in the group. And the third one is Asankhata Anu Vargana, that is innumerable Anu Vargana. It contains countless number of Paramanus. And the fourth one is Ananta Anu Vargana, infinite Anu Vargana. This Vargana has infinite number of Paramanus in the cluster. All these four types of Varganas do not associate with the soul, They are otherwise present in the cosmos and are useful to matter, but they are not useful to soul. The fifth one is Ahar Vargana. This constitutes the gross, protein and migratory bodies of organisms. The next one is non-associable, Agrahya Vargana. This Vargana does not associate with the soul. The next one is energy or Tejas Vargana. As we know, this forms the energy body of organisms. The next one is non-associable Vargana. It does not associate with soul. Next one is speech or Bhasha Vargana. Speech Vargana is a substitute, is suitable for producing all kinds of speech, including the sound produced by inanimate objects like musical instruments and natural phenomena like thundering of clouds. An organism attracts speech Vargana before producing sound and discharges them intermittently and not continuously. There are two kinds of speakers, powerful and weak. Varganas discharged by a powerful speaker like an Arihant travel to the end of universe, and Varganas discharged by a weak speaker, people like us, travel a finite distance. Then the next class is again non-associable Vargana. And next one is the mind Vargana, which constitutes the mind of organisms. The next one again is non-associable Vargana, and the higher one is the Karman Vargana, which forms the Karman bodies of organisms. The next one is a permanent regular or Dhruva Vargana. Next one is intermittent regular or Santa Nirantar Vargana. And the next one is a permanent nil or Sunya Vargana. All these three Varganas do not associate with soul. The higher one is individual or Pratyek body or Pratyek Sharir Vargana. This Vargana we would like to discuss in little detail because this is important in making comparison of Varganas to scientific concepts. In the living world, one soul may have one body or many souls may share a common body. So, in the former is called the individual or the Pratyek body, and the latter is called a common body or a Sadharan body. So, there are two types of beings, particularly in the plant category. The body of an individual body, soul, is constructed with the help of individual body Vargana. This is mentioned, that the individual body soul has a body, which is made up of this kind of Vargana, Pratyek Sharir Vargana. Now, let us analyze this point. The earth body, water body, fire body, air body, celestial body, infernal body, migratory body, and bodies of monks in 13th and 14th stages of spiritual development known as Gunasthan, and trees like mangoes, vegetable plants growing over ground like grass, etc., they are all supposed to be individual body souls. So the things which I mentioned just now, they are examples of individual body souls. According to science, the autotrophic plants and bacteria make their food with the help of sunlight. So here, we have two different things, Jain philosophy says that it is the Pratyek Sharir Vargana that is constituting their body. And here science says that, look here, bodies of such plants and bacteria are made up, or they are made with the help of sunlight. So by analogy, we infer that the individual body Vargana is sunlight. Now this is a very important conclusion or inference which we are making here, that the Pratyek Sharir Vargana compares with sunlight. So that gives us a ground to compare Vargana with scientific concept. And we'll use this fact in our further analysis. The next Vargana is large or the Badar Nigod Vargana. This Vargana forms the carbon and gross body of large Nigod microorganisms. In these cases, each organism has innumerable microbodies, and each body has infinite souls. Such is the Badar Nigod or the Badar Nigod Jeev. The higher one again is the permanent Nil Vargana, and the next higher one is Suksma Nigod Vargana or small Nigod Vargana. This Vargana is also found all over water, land and sky. This Vargana constitutes the gross and gross as well as the energy bodies and carbon bodies of small Nigod organisms. So all three kinds of bodies, whether it's a gross or whether it's a energy body or whether it's a carbon body, they are all made of this particular Vargana. Then next in higher is permanent Nil Vargana, and the last one is gross matter or what known as a Mahaskanda Vargana. And this Vargana is supposed to constitute all visible gross matter, whether visible or invisible. All gross kind of matter is made up of this Mahaskanda Vargana. Now, we like to make analysis of all these Varganas, and arrive at some important inferences which are rather very important from the point of view of understanding Jain philosophy. I have made a little sketch here, a diagram here. On the x-axis, I represented, you see the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is the Vargana number, The first Vargana is number 1, second Vargana is number 2, number 5 is fifth Vargana, and so on. And the number goes on up to 17. And the 17th Vargana is the Pratyek Sharir Vargana I just now described, So I am considering only the 17 Varganas here. And the 17th Vargana is the Pratyek Sharir Vargana, which I said compares with sunlight. That is, and the particle of sunlight is photon. So a Pratyek Sharir Vargana then is considered to be a light photon. Then what I have drawn here, you see one line which is falling down, and that represents the number of pradeshas in Vargana. As you go to the higher order of Varganas, the number of Paramanus in the Vargana or in the cluster of Vargana is increasing. But the number of Pradeshas which the Vargana occupies is decreasing. This is because as the number of Paramanus increase in a Vargana, the Paramanus pick up, the combine. I told you a property of Vargana that any number of Paramanus can occupy the same space. So, as the number of Paramanus increase in a Vargana, that is, as you go from lower end to the higher end of Vargana, more Paramanus they pick up in one space. So that so much so that one Pradesha can have infinite number of Paramanus. So there is another line which is drawn on the diagram, which says the number of Pradeshas having infinite Paramanus. So there could be number of Pradeshas having infinite Paramanus, and the number of such Pradeshas is increasing with the increasing order of Vargana, and that is the reason that the number of Pradesha is going down with the higher order Vargana. Now another important point, we know the sunlight moves with a certain velocity c defined in science. Then there is a special theory given by Einstein known as a special theory of relativity. And this theory says that there can be no velocity in nature greater than the velocity of light c. That is the theory, and science believes that this is the highest velocity possible in nature, and no object can move greater than the velocity of light c. Here I have drawn a vertical line at the 17th Vargana. On the right hand side I have marked here that V is less than c. Yes, for all objects which are greater than photon, now the velocity of that object will always be less than the velocity of light, as given by the special theory of relativity. But in our case, all these Varganas which are of smaller order, which are subtle in kind, and these Varganas are massless. So they differ from the Varganas which are greater than the photon. Photon, in science is considered to have zero rest mass, but when it is moving, it has a mass because of its kinetic energy. But when it is at rest, it has a zero mass, zero rest mass, photon. And all particles which are bigger than photon, their velocity would be always greater than the velocity of photon. And all these bigger particles have mass. For example, electron, proton, neutron, those particles with which you are familiar, they have mass. Photon also has a mass, in fact, when it is moving. But the particles which are smaller than photon, the subtle particles, what described by subtle form of Varganas, massless, these particles can move with a velocity greater than the velocity of light. And the proof is, when the soul moves from one place to another, for example, the soul is migrating, on death of a certain organism, from this place, earth, to a place in heaven, which is very, very far away now. Where the heavens are, we do not know exactly, but definitely beyond the solar system, or beyond the known universe, or the observable universe, or the universe which is known to science. The heavens are far beyond that. And if the soul has to travel from earth to such a distance in heaven in one summer, then imagine the velocity the soul will have, in this process or in this migration time. So obviously the velocity is much greater than the speed of light. This is what we anticipate, and I have marked here on the diagram on the left side of the 17th mark V greater than C. This is possible. This is not accepted by science, but this is what is obvious from the Jain philosophical considerations, that the velocity is much greater than the velocity of light. And I told you the Parmanu moves with a very high velocity. The maximum velocity of Parmanu is such that it moves from one end of the universe to the other end of the universe in just one summer. So that velocity in fact approaches infinity. So this kind of analysis, helps us to understand the form of subtle varganas. What are they? They are a subtle kind of electric field or electromagnetic field or a subtle kind of electric charge. This has to be decided, and probably it would depend upon what function the Karman Sharir and Tejas Sharir are performing. And we'll come across these things, in our later lectures. So we do understand that, the Karman Sharir and Tejas Sharir are very subtle, electric or electromagnetic in nature, and that helps us in analyzing their interaction with the gross body, and that we will talk in our future lectures or later lectures. Thank you very much.